I'm in Florida for NAREIT's 2019 ESG Forum. Joining me today is Marilyn Cece, Managing Director and Head of Green Bonds with JP Morgan Chase. Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start looking at green bonds, and we're starting to see more activity in the REIT space. What do you think is attributing to the rise in green bonds?
I think it's a natural evolution, quite frankly. You see the momentum and the demand coming from the tenant side, where they want sustainable buildings and they'll look to rent them. And I would say that that momentum is even stronger in Europe, but it is by far still progressing here. And so I think it's more of an outgrowth of what is transitioning. I think that the green bonds provide REITs in particular, but any issuer, an opportunity to really communicate their sustainability strategy, right? And an opportunity to attract a wider investor pool than they may have captured before.
Now, for companies that are issuing green bonds or thinking about issuing green bonds, what are the transparency and disclosure issues they should keep in mind?
Well, I think the most important thing to our green bond investors is that they follow the green bond principles. Green bond principles are voluntary process guidelines of best practices when one issues a green bond. And they include 4 basic elements. The use of proceeds, which is a commitment to use the proceeds in an environmentally friendly agenda. For most REITs, it's LEED, BREEAM, and the equivalent construction, retrofits as well, and certainly other energy efficiency upgrades. So there's a lot of flexibility on the use of proceeds, most common for REITs. But it's also, what is the process for selection? How are you deciding what goes in the green portfolio and what does not? Investors really want to understand that. And the third, of course, is the management of the proceeds. What do you do with the money prior to being allocated to those projects? Now, for REITs, that's a much simpler exercise because they don't really hold a lot of cash on hand. So they're often reimbursing themselves for monies already drawn, right, on lines and paying themselves back for that. And then lastly, it's a reporting. And this is the element I think that you were specifically asking for. Investors just want to know what you did with the money and what was the impact. I mean, it's pretty simple. And if you want to talk about water savings, greenhouse gas emission reduction, et cetera, they're all happy with the simplest, very simple characterization of what you're doing. But the asset managers need to report to their asset owners, the impact of their investments. So it's actually quite simple. And the hurdle itself is not really that high. If you're already building, you're going to know those impacts already.
Right. And lastly, how big do you think or expect the green bond market in the REIT space could get in the next couple of years?
So it's a great question. If I think about it from 2016 to 2017, we quadrupled. In 2017 to 2018, I think we doubled. It all depends upon the base you're coming from, right? So, but I think the important thing is we now have 59 global real estate issuers now in the green bond market. 7 of those are US REITs, and 3 of them have issued more than 1 green bond. So the trend is clearly moving in this direction, and I think there's also some commonality. When your peers are entering a space and getting very positive feedback from their stakeholders, then it becomes pressure to some degree of why aren't you issuing a green bond, right? Aren't you taking a sustainable approach to building?
Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
For more on this and other ESG-related topics, be sure to visit NAREIT's website, REIT.com.